Hey everyone, are you looking to get into real estate but not exactly sure where to start? No worries, because I was just there not too long ago. Within 3 years, I've accumulated 4 properties and 4 rentals. So what I like to do in the next 4 sessions is give you a walkthrough through each one of my deals so you could have a good understanding of the thought process into choosing a market, how to target a certain area, getting your team together, and ultimately renting out your property. My name is Ariel Herrera with the AnalyticsAriel channel, where we bridge the gap between real estate and technology. Now, if you like data analytics solutions, as well as practical advice, then please follow this channel. As well, like this content if you want to see more of it. All right, let's get started. Right now, I'm on Stessa, which is a really useful tool to see all your properties for your portfolio in one spot. You can also track expenses, leases and tenants, and more. What we're going to do is cover the first property, which I've nicknamed Ferry Street. Property number 1, Ferry Street, and you'll soon see why I called it Ferry Street. The way I like to break this up is into 4 sections, so the setup, the target, action, and actually reflection on the deal itself. So the reason why I wanted to get into real estate, if you don't know already, is that I was working in New York City as a data scientist, commuting from New Jersey. For those that aren't aware, living in New York City is almost unattainable, especially if you're living on your own. Rents are north of $2,400 for a space that's practically a shoebox. So in this case, I was commuting 2 hours to and from New York City, which was taking a taxing toll on my life. And I wanted to be able to have financial freedom where I could spend time with family, friends, get part of my life back. And in that process, I researched many different areas of having multiple streams of income. And the one that spoke to me the most was real estate. So how do you actually obtain real estate? You need to make sure you have good finances, meaning you have a good credit score, preferably over 650. You have a low debt to income ratio, meaning that you don't have a lot of high loans like car loans and so on. And you actually have that cash money for a down payment. My initial problem was that I actually had outstanding credit cards. So during this process, I was also going through finishing my master's degree, and I paid for my master's degree in cash. But in order to do that, I rolled over my credit cards into one large sum. So I did owe a lot. And in order to actually pay that down and have a down payment, I decided to forego continuing to live with friends in Jersey City and being close to the nightlife and action, and go back to living with my parents for a full year. Now, this isn't always easy. Luckily, my parents are super easygoing and positive, so I was okay with moving back, but the real thing that was a drag was that commute. So now I know that I want to invest in real estate, I know I want to move out, but how do I actually decide my strategy and what I'm trying to buy? So it's really important to understand what your strategy is. Are you looking to fix and flip? Are you looking to do wholesaling? In my case, I wanted to have something that would have long-term wealth. So I wanted to buy a property and hold it for a long period of time. Now, in order to buy an investment property as is, you need to put 25% down, typically if it's more than 2 units or more. And I didn't have the cash to do that. In New Jersey, properties are very expensive. Probably would need to get something that was north of $400,000, and I wasn't prepared to put down $100K or more. So I decided to do my strategy that I call live then rent. Live in a property for 1 year, which is a requirement, and then rent it out afterwards. Now, deciding my buy box, what is it exactly that I'm trying to buy? You need to narrow down the type of property. So in my case, I was looking to purchase a single family home, at least 2 beds, and at least 1.5 baths. And the reason was, if I'm going to be renting this out in the future, maybe I want to rent it out to a small family, and it's going to be really difficult for them to live in it if it's only 1 bathroom. Next is I want the property to be at least 1,000 square feet. So I want to make sure these rooms aren't like shoe boxes and super tiny, that they can actually be livable comfortably. Property needs to be at least 1900 and up, which you'd be surprised how old some houses could be in the Northeast. Turnkey property, because I know nothing about fixing properties up at this point. I have no family members that do, so I don't want to touch that. Want to have a backyard in order to have hosting. Parking, which is very critical. There's a lot of really good spots in New Jersey, but they have no parking. So the closer you are to action in downtown, usually you have no parking. And I don't want an HOA, and I want to make sure there's a washer and dryer in unit. For affordability, I can only afford to put 5% down. For affordability, if I were to make the full payment myself, $2,000 for the mortgage is my max. So by deciding this, I was able to assess that my price range that would be affordable for me would be between $250,000 to $300,000. Now the area itself, some of this was specific so that could be good for real estate, and some of it was more so for myself. So I wanted to be close to transit, meaning close to a train preferably, because the bus is susceptible to traffic. Less than 60 minutes to New York City. Good to great schools so that I could in the future rent this out to a family. Walkable to bars and restaurants, while oh my gosh, there are some places in New Jersey that are beautiful, but in the middle of nowhere, which is what I do not want. Want to be close to the beach because I'm a huge beach bum, and I want long-term appreciation, so I'm willing to be in an area that's not quote unquote poppin' right now, but has the opportunity to be in the future. So now knowing my buy box of what I'm trying to purchase, I then hone into the areas in New Jersey that meet this criteria. So I do want to be close to NJ Transit train system so I could be in and out of New York City for work within 60 minutes, and being on the train system versus bus is going to be more reliable. So I hone in on 4 different counties: Essex, Union, Middlesex, and Monmouth County. Now, Essex and Union County, just being from New Jersey, I know there's some areas that could be kind of dicey, where they're unsafe or there's a lot of drugs. So I just removed those. Then I grew up in Monmouth County, but I cannot afford to live in Monmouth County. So that was crossed out because it's too expensive. And then I have 5 cities in Middlesex County remaining. And these 5 cities are all on the blue transit line: Woodbridge, Perth Amboy, South Amboy, and Matawan. And because I'm willing to be in an area that has a lot of growth opportunity, but within the next 3 to 5 years, I start to look at news articles on new development and what's coming. And South Amboy really perked my attention because there was a new ferry that was going to be developed, and it would take you into New York City within 40 minutes. So that's how I decided on my actual market. Then how do I decide what a good property would be? So you need to be able to understand what the property would rent for. Say if you have a property where the total monthly payment is $2,000 and you can only rent it out for $1,600, where you're going to lose $400 every single month. That's what we call an alligator, coined by Michael Zuber. So it's just eating up your money. This wasn't the most elegant way, but as my first property, I just did a really straightforward, hey, what's my monthly payment going to be? I looked at Zillow to see the estimate. I plugged in, I'm only putting 5%. Whenever I looked at a property, got an estimate of what my monthly payment would be, and then took rent estimate, so the Zestimate, and then Rentometer, which are 2 tools to see what similar properties rent for currently. And I said, all right, if they would rent for at least $100 more, then it's good, which isn't the best approach, but that was just what I was working with at that time. Then my team. So we need to have an agent in order to actually put offers on properties, as I was looking for on-market properties, meaning that the seller themselves put it on the market to be sold. And I used my best friend, Jeremy, on the right. Then because I was in New Jersey, I needed to have a lawyer, which I used his referral. Also for the mortgage, I used PNC, so that was his referral. For insurance, I used my boyfriend's sister for that. Then for the inspector, I had a friend that just closed on a home a couple zip codes away, gave me her inspector. He said he couldn't do it because it wasn't his zip code, so he referred me to someone else. Just a chain of asking people and seeing who they know. Then for handyman, I want to have someone just in mind, and my boyfriend's cousin is super, super handy, go Dave. So I did just, shoot him a quick text and say, hey, I'm looking to get a property. in the future, in a year from now, I'd like to rent it. Would you be open to doing some fixes if need be? He said, yeah, of course. Then last and most important is accountability partner. So the way my mind works is it runs super fast, where maybe I see a property, I start to envision all the things that I could do with it, what the 3 to 5 year outlook is. I try to paint it perfectly. And Mama Herrera, which is my mom, brings me down to earth and says, what about this issue? What about how close this is to the nearest business? It's going to be super loud. Like, she'll give me all those perspectives that I'm maybe not seeing in my clouded judgment. So it's really important, whether it's a mentor or it's just someone who's a close friend who can hold you accountable. Preferably a mentor that has experience in real estate, which my mom does not, but she has gotten up to speed by reading a lot of Bigger Pockets books that I've given to her. Great. So in total, during this time period, it was 2019 in the winter, so around February or so. We looked at 5 different houses within the Matawan and South Amboy area. Some were just really bad, where you jumped and you felt the floor like move, which is a really bad flip. And then there was 2 that we put offers on. So one that got accepted and one that I was so gung-ho about. I'm glad I didn't get it because it actually wasn't that good of a deal. And altogether, I was able to close on a property that was originally listed at $319. They had a price change 2 months later to $295, and the sold price was $279. So I put 5% down, 1% in escrow, meaning that they hold the money for good faith, and then it goes towards closing at the end, and then 60 days to close. And I kept all contingencies, meaning that if in the inspection something came up wrong, or if the appraisal didn't come up to the amount, that the seller would need to make accommodations there. So now we get to the due diligence phase. And for me, I'm ecstatic. I'm about to close on a home, moving out of Mama Herrera's house, and I am ready to be on my own. But of course, you need to make sure the property you're going to live in is actually sound. So this property was originally from the early 1900s, and it was flipped in 2018. So I just assumed, oh, it's flipped. People who do flips know what they're doing. Definitely not the case. So when we have the inspector come, there's a lot of minor fixes that need to be made. For example, little things, even like the plumber didn't put the heat for the water in the right side. The heat and the cold part are mismatched. Then there's the caulking for the windows, other things. But the main issue is that there's a foundation crack. And the inspector says, hey, I'm not a structural engineer. This needs to be checked out. But cracks going down could be really bad. It could be anything from something that would cost $3 to $5K to fix to a full job on a foundation. We talked to the seller. They say they have documentation from a structural engineer that the foundation is okay, and they're going to bring it to closing. Along with that, they accept that they're going to fix all the minor items on the list, which it was a long laundry list. And there was a really old shed in the backyard, which in my stance, I was just like, whatever, I want the deal, I'll take the shed. And my mom was like, no, you don't want that shed. It's going to cost so much money to eventually take out, like force it into the contract for them to take out that shed, which so glad I listened to her and did that. Then it's closing day, yay! Closing day, which got delayed by a week. And then we go to the lawyer's office, we're ready to sign on everything. All the seller has to do is bring a document that shows a structural engineer signed off that the foundation's okay. And of course, they have some sort of document. It's not from a structural engineer. And my lawyer's like, this is just not acceptable. We might not even be able to close today. So luckily we were able to close. The seller did have to put $25K into escrow for the foundation repairs, have an agreement that we both agree on who the structural engineer is, and then if the repairs went above that amount, they would still need to fund it. Thinking everything's all well, move in April. They don't actually start the work until like middle of the summer. So that was frustrating because we were just waiting, having contractors in and out, seeing things, working very slowly, so it wasn't preferable. And then one day I'm working from home upstairs and I just hear two grown men screaming at each other. It's a structural engineer and the general contractor who's doing the work within the basement, just screaming on top of their lungs. I am like terrified. I don't know, never seen two grown men in my own house scream like that. Don't know what to do. Luckily, the contractor got fired and the job was finished in 2 weeks afterwards. And the brightest part of all of this was that one of the workers for the contractor, he was really nice to us, and my mom speaks Spanish. He spoke Portuguese, a little bit of Spanish also, and they were able to communicate with one another where he would help to do other work in the future. So we got another connection of a handyman out of it. And that's the picture of when I closed. It was super exciting day. And in classic New Jersey fashion, it was gray outside, which is why I live in Tampa now, but it was a very exciting moment. So now, had the property, foundations fixed, and I decided to do house hacking. So for those who aren't aware of house hacking, it's basically having a property that you live in and you have other tenants inside of it. So there's different types of strategies. It could be a room rental, which is what I did. It could be a multifamily property where you each have your own units. And another one is an ADU. You guys might be familiar with this, like a mother-in-law suite or a different attachment to the back of the house. So in this case, we did room rental. Total monthly payment was $1,880. I paid $580. My boyfriend paid $700, and his cousin lived with us in the second bedroom for $600. So by being able to do this, I was able to save for a new property so much faster because I wasn't paying the full monthly payment myself. And alongside, I'm doing well at work because I'm not as tired anymore since my commute is a lot quicker. And I take payment via Zelle. And I mentioned a little bit before, the backyard was horrendous. If we see on the left-hand side of this picture, there was actually a huge metal shed that took up this whole spot. We got that removed. We had two really ugly trees. I think this one was mostly a weed. And we had a really ugly fence. The grass was uneven and a lot of weeds as well. And then here's the other tree where it's pressing right against that fence as well. And we have some of the leaves actually hitting the house. So we removed the trees. It was around $1,300 or so to remove the trees, which really cleans up the backyard at this point. We still have one in the back corner. And our neighbor asked us, hey, we're thinking about doing our fence. Do you mind if we knock down that fence and put a white one there? And I'm like, go for it. That's amazing. Now at least 2 of the 3 parts of the backyard look pretty nice. However, the grass is still not really desirable and it's not giving a spark to the house. So we decided to hire the guy who actually, one of the workers that helped with the foundation work, to redo the backyard grass and some other repairs. So that's what it looks like. We put in mulch, so that's going around the edges. We also had a spray paint for the fence, put in new grass, and did some other work. So the way I communicated with my mom / the person who did the work was by handing over a Google Doc. Super simple. If you don't use Google Drive, I highly encourage you to do so since everything's on the cloud and really easy. So what I did was I just walked around the house and I took pictures of what I believed needed to be fixed in order to be able to rent it out. So the doorbell wasn't working. The fence in the front was super rusted. There was a fence blocking the driveway, which made absolutely no sense. So I asked for that to be removed. Then we had these random poles, metal poles, which I found out was because back in the day, this was the poles that they used for laundry. So I wanted that to be removed, even though it was really useful for a workout spot in order to do ropes. Then there was a random rock in the backyard that we just could not remove. And we found out later on that there used to be a pool in the backyard, and this was somehow connected to that pool. And we wanted to also spray paint the fence. So this is just an example of what you can do, it literally took me 20 minutes to put together, 10 minutes walking around the house, taking pictures of things, then 10 minutes to set this up. Here's another before and after. This is that picture of the fence. And we could see afterwards that the fence has been removed, so the driveway is really easy to come in and out. Beforehand, we'd be kind of lazy, and the fence doors, if we didn't close it the right way, would like swing out into the neighbor's side, which they did not like. So that was good to be removed. And then we could see that this has been spray painted and it looks a lot better. So next steps, I need to get this property listed so that it could be rented. What I do is that I take updated photos with my phone. iPhone's good enough, but if you have a professional camera, even better. Then I go to get rental estimates. So I look at Rentometer. I also look at the Zestimate, the rent estimate. And I noticed that it's a little bit low. A lot of them say I shall only rent it out for $1,800, which that's going to put me at a loss since my mortgage is $1,880. So I keep researching, try to see properties that are very similar that have been updated in the last year or two. So now it's looking more like $2,000. But COVID just happened in March. I'm looking to list it at the end of May. And I'm thinking, hey, there's probably a lot of people who are looking to move to bigger spaces. We have a backyard here. We have a driveway. Let's up this to 10% higher than what there is on the market. And worst case scenario, we just bring the price down. So I put it up for $2,200, and let me tell you, within just the first day, there were so many people that wanted to come and see the property. I listed it on Zillow and Facebook, and then in order to show the property, I did it myself. I reread parts of Managing Rental Properties by Brandon Turner, and because of all the fixes that we've done, I was super confident, so I puffed out my chest, just like SpongeBob on the left, and I set hard requirements. So I was not going to take cash up front and not have payment for like 3 months. Some people had said, oh, I could give you 3 months up front right away. I give you the $6,600. No, you need to be able to apply on Zillow. I need to see your credit score. It needs to be over 650 at the time was what I was asking. And then make 3 times income for the amount of the rental property. So I showed the property, and it was actually really exhilarating. I loved being able to talk to people, show them the aspects of the home that I love since I lived in it. And ultimately, we rented it out to a really lovely couple who was from Staten Island, which is only 20-25 minutes away. And they wanted to move into a larger area, and they were so shocked of the price. They're like, wow, you cannot get this price across the bridge. So who knows, maybe I could even put it higher. Then became moving time. It is always a little bit sentimental when you leave a property. I've done it several times at this point already. So on the left is one of my last times doing a recording when I was at the property. And then my move, which I'll show you for my later deal, is actually moving to Tampa. But of course, every property that we acquire should always have some learning lessons. So when I reflect back on it, the way I managed a property, so how I was actually getting payments from the tenants, is through Cozy, which is now apartments.com. It's free to use. Tenants can pay rent directly on it, and then within 5 days, you're able to get the funds. You could get it sooner, but that's going to cost a little bit more money. Then I track my monthly expenses on Stessa. And I'm also able to see how the equity is rising within the property as the market value rises. And then lessons learned. So number 1, beware of buying flip properties. Not every company that does a flip property does it well. This really hurt me in the sense that I shouldn't have trusted that this structural engineer sign-off was going to happen. I should have gotten my own structural engineer to check out things during the inspection. So I definitely learned from that perspective. Then expect taxes to increase upon sale. Remember, my mortgage was $1,880 and I rented out for $2,200. So I'm thinking, nice, I'm going to have about $300 spread here. Well, after I moved out, then the next year the taxes went up and my total payment every month is $2,150. So I'm making $50, which is practically nothing. All it takes is one small repair and my cash flow is done for the year. So I learned that taxes do increase upon sale. then development on the news is never done on time. So I was so excited for South Amboy because of the ferry coming. Due to COVID, the ferry got pushed. It is still being developed now, but the perspective of, oh, it's going to be here within a year wasn't true. It's more like a 3-year time frame. So always keep track of development as it progresses. And don't be afraid to ask questions. Even that little part of the shed being in the backyard and me not wanting to ask for it to be removed, my mom pushing me to do so, that was my fear of not knowing how to gauge what I should be asking for. Make sure you're always asking for what you need. Don't be afraid, and ask questions when you're unsure. And throughout the whole process of buying your first property, you're going to feel anxious. I felt it many times. My boyfriend can attest to this as well. However, when you feel anxious, any time in life I've realized, it means that you're progressing and you're improving. So it's a good thing. I hope that me sharing my first deal has been useful. Next video, we'll be sharing my second deal. And if you have any comments on tips or tricks that helped you with your first deal, please do share in the comments below. Thanks.